Hey guys, MCU Collector here with another figure review, and next up in the Hasbro Marvel Legends series Spider-Man Wave 14, the Stilt-Man Build-A-Figure for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we have Peter B. Parker, which I like that they labeled him as Peter B. Parker and not Spider-Man, because this is him not as Spider-Man. He is in his street clothes, looking all homeless and stuff, wearing two different shoes and a big old coat. Awesome looking figure. I'm really glad that they went with this instead of just a Spider-Man figure. Now, I have that basic version here, so at least I have a version. Now, I know size-wise it's not going to really work, but you can kind of fudge it so that kind of works this way. It's an interesting design, and I'm sure they're going to use that coat and find other ways to kind of do with it, but I'm really happy that we got him looking like this, because it's just something different and fun. Looking at the package, the side artwork of Peter B. Parker looks really awesome. I like that. Looking at the back, we get a look at Stilt-Man, all the figures in the wave, and I have been going in reverse order, so the next video after this will of course be Gwen Stacy and Spider-Ham, and then Miles Morales will finish it off before we get to Stilt-Man. Looking at his bio, it says Peter B. Parker. Peter Parker mentors Miles Morales, an all-new Spider-Man, to understand the importance of power and responsibility. So I like that. There he is. Let's get him open. Okay, so before everyone starts asking, I ordered my set from ToySnowman.com. They are a Canada-based online seller. They do ship to the US, so link in the video description below for ToySnowman.com. Here we have the Peter B. Parker figure out of the package, and I will give you a big warning right out of the package. This is unlike any other Marvel Legends figure that we have gotten before, mainly because of the proportions. Now, it's extremely accurate when it comes to the Into the Spider-Verse movie, but because of that, we get thin legs, we get a very thin neck. There's some things going on that you just need to be very careful with. So I will stress that. Please be careful with your figure. But let's zoom in and look at the accessories that it comes with. Look at the Peter B. Parker figure itself, and then go into the articulation. But first, here we have the Build-A-Figure part. We have the headpiece for Stilt-Man, and that looks pretty good. Pretty basic. White for the eyes, a little bit of skin tone for the exposed portions of his face. There we have it. So we'll stick that over to the side. Now let's zoom for the accessories, which is the coolest thing, a cup. Okay, so we actually get the cup, which is the drink. We have that yellow stripe and that blue stripe on there. The straw, you can even see the little flex portion on there that's sculpted on. That's done nicely. There is some give with that, but you want to be careful. It doesn't actually spin in there, so it's very soft and it can probably rip easily, so be very careful with that. We get an additional 2 sets of interchangeable hands, so out of the package he actually has his ungloved hands, and then we get some thwipping hands, and these do look to be new, and they're sculpted on there. No painted web lines, but the web lines are at least sculpted and part of the mold. So we get those thwip hands, and then we get these fisticuffs there. Then we also get the unmasked Peter Parker head, and he has that little facial expression with the eyebrow raise. One thing they did not do with this one is they did not give him the 5 o'clock shadow that they did on the unmasked version, but that does look really good. The mask portion, you even get some hair there on the side, and then hair on the back as well, and then you get some nice folds where that mask would be folded over. So that looks really good. And then you're going to have to be extremely careful when switching this out, and I'll talk to you about that here in a second. But the digital face print looks really good on that as well. Now let's take a closer look at the figure. Okay, so looking at the Peter B. Parker head sculpt, looks really good. I like that you even got the hair coming down there, and then you can see that that is a sculpted piece. It kind of hangs out. It is a little rubbery, so do be very careful when it comes to that. But I love the way it looks. The digital face print, the 5 o'clock shadow that they gave him, the very thin head, thin and narrow head. It's kind of tall as well. But because of that, the neck itself, you can see that's pretty high on the neck, and it's a very thin piece, so I'm kind of scared to kind of really move around that, because look how large that hinge is compared to the rest of the neck. That I think is a recipe for disaster and breaking that ball peg, so be very careful about it. That's one of the warnings that I wanted to give you. The elbows and stuff were very tight out of the package. I kind of forced mine, so you might want to warm yours up when the time comes. Looking at the jacket, that looks really good. We actually get some gold color buttons on there, silver for that coat, but it all is sculpted quite nicely. The legs are very thin, by the way. Like, this one is like popping out, as you can see. there. So you want to be very careful with that. And then we get a boot for his right foot, and then like a low top Chuck Taylor-ish tennis shoe for his left. That looks really good. You got the sweatpants there. The figure would be really nice actually to get a Spider-Man in this, but molded web lines instead of painted web lines. I know a lot of people don't like that. It's not the greatest, I'll admit, but I don't mind it because of the molded on there. You could see the lines itself. If there were no web lines, no paint, then I think it would be really bad. So it's kind of one or the other. I think it would be difficult to paint those. And yes, I know Hasbro has done it before, but it's one of those, you know, we didn't get it. It sucks. Should have had it, but it is what it is. We get some new articulation. We have a ball jointed waist and a diaphragm joint, but you're not going to get the most use out of that because of the big ass coat, unfortunately. But the figure does look really good, but again, you got to be careful because it's very thin compared to most Marvel Legends figures that we get. So let's zoom out for that articulation now. Okay, so Peter B. Parker's articulation, he can look all the way down unnaturally, so he can look all the way up, which is great. You get a rotation in there, of course, and you kind of get some pivot going on there. You can get the shoulder to go up that high. Hey, be careful with it. You get a full rotation going on in there. There's no butterfly joint or anything like that. You have an upper bicep swivel there. Double jointed elbow like so. They are pinless elbows, and I forgot to mention they are pinless knees. So double jointed elbow, again, mine was very, very stiff. Be careful. Wrist swivel, and they do hinge, and this one's got a big ass hinge on that palm, and same for the other one as well. This one is the open holding hand, so he can hold his cup like so. It stays in there quite nicely. So in here, and it's hard because of the jacket, but we have that upper diaphragm joint. So you can actually get him to pivot to the side quite a bit, get him to pivot to the other side. You can get it to move back a little bit, and then you can actually see where the web line mold stops, unfortunately. But going back is not really going to work out because of the coat. You can get him forward that much, which is a decent amount, but we also have that waist ball in addition to the diaphragm joint, so you can get him to some crazy weird poses like that. But going forward with his legs straight, you can get him to go forward that much. Going back, again, you can't just because of the way the coat is, but you get a twist at that diaphragm, and then you also get a little bit of a twist at the waist, but it's a little bit difficult. You want to be careful because of the way the hip works, but you can get some twist in there, so you can really move them around quite a bit, as you see there. And you can see my legs really starting to pop off, but you can get the legs to go out that far apart when you work it in front of the jacket, because that does hinder, of course. He can kick forward that much, and you can get it to go out quite a bit. There is that upper thigh cut there. You get a double jointed knee, but be very careful. Very stiff out of the package. I don't want to break it. So double jointed knee like so. There is no, oh, there is. He has that calf swivel right at the sweatpants. Both of them do, so that is really cool. Foot hinges all the way down, hinges up a little bit. Ankle pivot, peg holes at the bottom of that foot. The boot, same thing. We get the swivel actually at the top of the calf there. Foot hinges down, hinges, it doesn't really hinge up. Ankle pivot, peg hole at the bottom of the foot. Again, be very careful with these extremely thin pieces. I cannot stress that enough. Be very careful. So there he is. Let's get him to stand with his thin ass legs. There he is. Okay, so popping out the head, I remember, be very careful. So we're gonna pop that off. Luckily that ball peg isn't too large, but the hinge, the disc hinge in there is quite large, so be very careful with it. We're gonna, see what I mean? And pop the head, and there is the Peter Parker head with the mask down. Now I think it looks good, but it's really missing that 5 o'clock shadow, because it really gives him a completely different look in my opinion. The 5 o'clock shadow definitely would have helped with that, but it really gives him a different look because of his eyebrows and the facial expression on there. But that looks really good like that. And then of course popping on some of those interchangeable hands there with, he has the gloves, so it's like he is suited up, and they just pop in there like so and fit in those coat sleeves like that. Okay, for some side-by-side comparisons, here we have the Miles Morales from the Target exclusive 2-pack that came with Gwen Stacy. So you can see Peter B. Parker is quite taller, and I think this size works out a little bit well. I still think he looks to be a little undersized. Hopefully the Miles Morales figure in this wave will be a little bit taller, and then we have him next to Prowler. The only other movie figures that I've opened from this wave just so far, these two. And just for the side-by-side comparison, I did open up that basic Spider-Man figure that I have held on to for a couple of years now. And again, extremely limited articulation. It's basically 5, maybe 7 points. But those, wow, that was really stiff. It's hard because he's got extremely thin legs and arms on this guy as well. His head keeps wanting to look down. But it's nice if, I mean, you could really fudge it in a display depending on what you want to do. But like if you're looking at like next to your Miles Morales, I think that could work. If anything, maybe his legs and arms are a little bit thicker than Spider-Man. But height-wise, I think that can work a little bit better. I'd have to really go back and see the height difference between the two. But it's unfortunate these basic figures are always a little bit shorter. But that would be really cool if we actually got this Spider-Man figure. I'm not mad that we don't in Legends form, but I certainly would be welcome to Hasbro releasing that somewhere down the line. I think it's probably a little past that at this point. You know, we're already 2 years removed from the film's release, so I can't imagine that we're going to get any more, but there we go. Okay, just to give you my final thoughts on the figure quickly, I'm very happy with it. The proportions are accurate to the movie, but they're just so thin, I'm scared I'm going to break it. So I do recommend some kind of heating treatment before you start moving this thing around. So whether you put it in a Ziploc bag and keep it under hot water for a minute or two, or you use the hairdryer method. I don't have a hairdryer, so I can't do that. Maybe one of these days I'll end up buying one. But a very welcome addition to my collection. So when I figure out how I'm going to display all the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse figures, this one is just the really fun one that's going to stand out amongst the others as being an interesting one. You know, it would have been so easy for Hasbro to just release a Spider-Man figure like this. They probably just would have reused a bunch of different parts and that kind of thing. So this one just adds a lot to the fun factor of the collecting and action figures and that movie, so I'm very happy with it. But you guys let me know down in the comments below your thoughts. And also, if you guys liked this video, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and as always, thank you for watching.